Are you on the edge of your seat?
Because we're about to sound off with Kevin Williams.
On today's latest trends in location-based entertainment.
Brought to you by the LBX Collective.
Your community to connect, engage, and inspire.
Alrighty, everyone. Let's buckle up.
Well, gang, we are here for episode 52. We may have had a few takes before this to get it right, but we finally figured it out. So, yes, our juju is something is wrong in the air. We must clear it. Alrighty. As always, we'll be diving today into the latest trends in business and technology in the entertainment space. And as you can see, we are down a man today, but we are excited to be heading together next week at IAPA in Orlando, where we will be at the show. If you are not there, I'm so sorry that you're not attending. I hope you don't have too much FOMO, but never fear, we will be back the following weeks to share all the fun, interesting, curious, amazing things that we saw at the show. Alrighty, but Kevin, let's get things started. What do you have for us today?
Well, in lieu of the elections that just passed and the discussion that has been started, the question is really, is access media for our trade associations and organizations dead? And are we now depending more on social media and influencers for our information and our opinions?
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, I almost wonder if it depends on what role you're in. To me, like if you're a customer potentially for one of these centers, social media and influencers, I think they play the biggest role nowadays. Like you just want to hear from somebody else what's going on, right? But for us that are in the business and we're buying products and wonder what's in the industry, I still think, we're looking to media sources, and maybe some of those media sources are influencers, to some degree, but I'm not sure if it's dead. I guess maybe after this election, I wonder how honest it is.
Well, the reality is that most people are now treating the media with the disdain it deserves. There is good media and there is bad media. There are good hamburgers, there are bad hamburgers. There are good cars and there are bad cars. It is true of everything that we consume in our lives. There are qualities. And some would argue that the quality of the media is only as good as the amount you're prepared to pay. So free media is buyer beware. That said, as a man that runs a newsletter in his spare time, I have to be very clear to say that I run a observational newsletter. It doesn't pretend to be a news service. It is a news and views service. It has news, it has views, but it is also the opinion piece of the publisher, the editor, myself. And that is true of my articles. The articles are reflections of myself, not as a journalist, but as an observer of the industry. There has to be a distinction between the two. And I am concerned now that we're running into the position where some people aren't aware that the media or the news that they're getting from their media may be constrained. There are news services out there in the sector that are paid for editorial. I think a lot of our watchers and listeners would be surprised how many of the trade medias for various parts of the industry are pay for play, where you have to pay a certain amount for your press release to be covered. You have to pay a certain amount for you to be covered in their editorial. And I remember an individual many moons ago complaining to me about the Stinger report, saying, you write whatever you want. And I went, yes, that is the pleasure of the service that I run. You read the disclaimer at the bottom. It is an opinion piece. It is, and they weren't used to that. And especially in the amusement industry, for some time, there was a concern that if the trade associations felt that if they invested in the magazines, that they should have control. And the magazines bit back and said, no, we are supporting your members. You are giving us support of the support we're giving your members, but you have no editorial control over us. And I know certain of the editors from those trade publications fought tooth and nail for their independence. That said, I have been the victim of, advertiser control over my writing from time to time in trade magazines in the past. Part of the reason why the Stinger report exists. Towards the core question that I'm raising really is, You've confirmed, the observation that most people are still depending on what we would call news sites or magazines for their information as well as their own research. The question is, how many of those online news services are independent? How many of them are advertorial? How many of them are just rerunning press releases? And then there's the sort of the niggling question: how accurate are they? I talk about virtual reality and augmented reality and mixed reality and all these new technologies, but from the core operations business out there, the average Joe Schmo facility operator doesn't really care that much about the technology out of their price point. They're caring more about the redemption machines or the coin pushers that they're putting into their facility or the crane machines than they are about the high-end immersive technology and horses for courses. That said, you may notice that we don't have too many news media services out there that write about purely redemption machines or prize machines. The services out there that do cover that, funny enough, are linked to distributors and are produced by distributors as a kind of report on what products they have and the benefits of the lines that they cover. Again, for a very profitable part of our industry, the crane business or the redemption business, you would have expected that would have been able to at least keep one amusement publication going that would deal wholly on that sector. But we used to have 5 magazines that covered that sector when I joined the magazine, the whole of the amusement gambit. Now we're down to, in the States, 1.5 magazines, to be blunt. And that kind of tells you how difficult it is to run a magazine, as well as how difficult it is to generate profit.
There was a lot there. But really good words. And I think, the biggest piece of advice is make sure you know what you're reading and who wrote it and what the intentions were.
Yeah. Try and get multiple opinions really on the topic is the best thing. And it's difficult if there aren't that many people talking about the subject.
For sure. You know what I think is so interesting is there's this big push right now to indicate if something was written by AI to have that labeled on your, your newsletter or your writing, whatever. But we haven't gone back to say, hey, this is something I'm writing because I am trying to sell this product or I'm supporting this product. I think it's really curious,
It's a concern. It is a very big concern. Every time I write a feature where I'm talking about a company that I'm doing or have done consultancy for, I will try and say, for the sake of transparency, I have been associated with that company. Still doesn't mean that it's going to color my opinion that much. It just means that I have maybe a little bit more information available to me to be able to share about that particular product or service. It would be nice to see people actually saying, I am a consultant for that operation, and that is why I'm writing that article. But again, you can understand why some people do.
Of course. Okay, well.
Time to jump in.
But first, let's hear a word from our sponsor, Intercard.
Intercard is the only cashless system designed, developed, and manufactured all under one roof. They introduced cashless technology to the amusement industry and have been leading the way for over 30 years. Cashless systems from Intercard increase customer spending, guest satisfaction, and boost revenues by up to 30%. Intercard is so proud to be serving the amusement industry, and if you aren't already part of their global family of customers, they hope you will become one soon.
All right, take us away.
Well, thank you. And in we go, 52. Some developments, an operational side of the business. We've talked about Sandbox VR a number of times over the many episodes of the Sound Off. And one of the things about it is that we are looking at an operation that is in a rollout phase. What we mean by rollout phase is that the operation is working incredibly hard to establish as many facilities based upon its model as possible and to achieve that, they not only operate their own facilities, but have now focused heavily on the positioning of their business as a franchise model. And they have been formulating a number of strategic partnerships. We talked about one of those that dealt with a company in Germany that has started quite an aggressive rollout of Sandbox VR facilities there. And recently we had the announcement that Sandbox has partnered with LOL Entertainment. What if that does stand for laugh out loud? But anyway, LOL Entertainment, who have agreed to roll out at least 4 new Sandbox locations in key venues. Those venues are quite high traffic cities, and those are cities that I would argue are prime targets for their facility. But from Sandbox's point of view, it's easy to have an agent or a franchisee undertake that process for them. But in talking about this development, we also had some information from Sandbox that they have a business plan that the company is looking to open in the next 4 years, 280 facilities.
Wow.
You know, they're already at about 56, 57 as I speak to you. I think I'm correct, 54, 55, I think we're up to. But 280, you know, that is a large number of virtual reality free roaming arena systems to deploy internationally. And they wouldn't come up with a number like that idly. So someone has gone away and done the research on what the market can bear, in bearing in mind, pardon the pun, the competition has to be factored into that. You know, their closest competition at the moment, who is twice as big as them on basic numbers, is Zero Latency with their 100 plus facilities. So in the next 4 years, that's quite an aggressive process, and that process will be achieved through franchising. But it also needs to be mindful that a lot can happen in 4 years. Virtual reality at the moment is still, in the location-based entertainment sector, still popular. People are prepared to go to location-based entertainment facilities and jump in and immerse themselves. But the issue is, how long will they be interested in this particular flavor of virtual reality? How much can the content be brought up to speed on a day-to-day basis? Because, you know, these venues are voracious regarding the content in the consumer sector. So let's deal with the video amusement sector. There, you know, it is calculated that a video arcade machine has a life expectancy of about 24 months. During the periods that I first started in the industry, it was actually down to 9 months that these machines were effective cash generators. And again, it would be interesting to see how long one of the games in a Sandbox VR facility stays fresh, as it were. The company saw great success with its Squid Games VR experience, seeing million ticket sales for people to play that. And really, I think that means that Sandbox is going to have to double down and start looking for more of that type of content. So be prepared to see a lot more licensed content based on popular genres, but also be prepared to see a Sandbox VR facility close to you if you are in one of the major metropolitan areas. It will be fascinating to follow this. And, you know, my sources tell me, and again, it's only based on rumor and supposition, that a lot of this effort that Sandbox VR is putting into their business is towards being able to float the company as a going concern within the next couple of years. So I wouldn't be surprised that that 280 number may be based on the activities that they're hoping to achieve, promoting the operation as a going concern for its float.
Right. Oh, this is so interesting. Have you ever seen a rollout this big before in your history?
Let's see. The laser tag boys had a go at trying to get in the big numbers, but it wasn't really the 280 numbers. It was around the 100 number. I would have to say no for this type of entertainment offering. it would, if you go through my database of facility chains and facility operations, most of them are in the high 60s, 70s, and 80s regarding the number of chains that they operate. We have a couple of trampoline parks that are higher than that for various reasons. And in the escape room business, there are some high numbers as well. But they're not usually chains, they're usually groups or affiliations. But I think this would be quite a major leap in location-based entertainment as a franchise rollout number. Obviously everybody's going to shout at the screen and point to our friends at Dave and Buster's stroke Main Event as being up there. But, even Dave and Buster's is only sitting on 150 plus facilities. 200 is a big number.
Yeah, I mean, and I think these facilities are, I want to say they're a little bit more simplistic, probably to own and operate, but still, this is that you're talking 70 new franchisees or 70 new locations anyway, every year for the next 4 years.
Every year.
Well,
it's a little higher than that because I think we also have attrition.
Sure, right.
Yeah, we will. It's not plain sailing when you're doing the high numbers. You open ones and you close down. Our friends at Park Playgrounds VR saw that with their UK facility. Open 2, closed down, and then 1 survived, leaving them having to find an operator for the next one. It's not that easy to when you're in the high numbers. You are in the McDonald's and Subway, and Subway's just going through a major shake-up, and there's some other fast food chain franchises going through major shake-ups. So it's not all roses. I would expect that we will see quite a drastic change in brand, presentation, and positioning for Sandbox VR to achieve this number. They have access to the capital. One of their key investors at the beginning was Alibaba, that encouraged them, and they have had access to VIP investors over the period of their operation. But again, that is an ambitious number.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, wishing them the best. Can't wait to
watch
it.
Wishing them the best, because all boats will definitely float if they start hitting those numbers.
Yes.
And talking about the changes in temperament and taste, of course, we're seeing quite a shake-up in the consumer application of virtual reality. Our friends at Apple have been linked to a number of stories. Now, talking about the media at the beginning of this presentation, we have to be buyer beware, information beware. We are in a point where a number of articles have come out from various sources, conflicting, but some confirming the status that Apple is looking at cooling its investment in the Apple Vision Pro, their spatial computer platform. What I would call their attempt at virtual reality under Apple conditions is closer to AR than to the VR that our friends at Sandbox are offering. But all the same, from the public's perspective, they saw this technology as being the big boom. And to be blunt, the consumer VR sector is having a make or break Christmas this year. Our friends at Apple are now conceding that their $3,000 ski glasses are not as popular as they expected. They had said at the beginning that they expected them to be a prosumer product and an early adopter product, but they had set aside about 50,000 units, 50 to 60,000 units that were going to be rolled out. Now they're cutting back on the number that they actually expect. And well-placed sources are saying that they have actually suspended production of the current system towards their aspirations to build a cost-effective system. A lot of black eyes from the tech journos in the sector, really, because a lot of people thought that this was going to be next best thing since sliced bread. They expected anything that Apple touches turns to gold, and it looks like that what Apple has touched here has not turned to gold, but something brown and quite smelly. Part of the problem there is that there's not enough content for this system. Part of the problem is that it's a very expensive piece of equipment. Part of the problem is that are people as keen as the tech journalists would like you to believe of sticking something on your head for quite a long period of time rather than using a conventional tablet or mobile phone to do that? Are the apps and the capabilities and the immersion to a high enough level to warrant you wearing something like this for a long period of time? And the journalist may claim that it is really popular, but when the vote is counted, it looks like it wasn't as popular as they thought. Are we seeing a pattern with our journos?
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it. Interesting, though, again, use a large bag of salt on this. Certain of the sources where they're running these articles are running them for clickbait. These are headlines that will guarantee that people will click on it. And love it or hate it, the Apple Vision Pro did get in the zeitgeist. It did get a lot of coverage when it was launched at the beginning of the year. The question is, what happens next, really, with the system? If Apple decides to pause until 2027 before they launch the next system, a lot can happen over that period of time. And also, while they are pausing, they're going to be doing soundings. And maybe they find out that the audience isn't as hot towards this product as they originally thought. It'll be interesting to see. Talking about flavor and hotness, one of the things that we've been doing recently is for all those that are interested in the trends and the applications, along with what we do in the Stinger report, I also created a little bit of a short form video going through the 4 or 5 key sectors of the market, looking at trends, 5 of the key trends that we can expect to see making inroads in 2025. Part of this is me creating a time capsule. I do not claim to be the font of all wisdom. I claim to be as fallible as the next guy, but I sort of have collected the information that is coming to the front of our research and our development and our commissioners and consultancies, and put them together in each one of these short form videos. I would be interested for our audience to give feedback if they agree with the outcomes of these, but also it kind of points towards what is the zeitgeist, what is the hot button topics that are being talked about at this point in time as we get close to rushing into the maelstrom that is IALPA. And then after IALPA, I will be re-evaluating at the same time next year the short forms and coming up with the next. And I think I might even do before then, I might rate each one of these evaluations on how accurate they were regarding the taste. If you jump back about 4 or 5 years, we can sort of say we would be talking a lot more about VR than about XR at that point. We weren't as engrossed by competitive socializing 4 or 5 years ago as we are now. And what will be the trend in another 4 years? But vice versa, how much will our traditional industry change based upon the impact of the new technologies that we're looking at now? For every action, there is a reaction. So for all of the XR technology that we're looking at the moment, maybe in a year's time, the audience will be looking more for physical and traditional applications.
Yeah, I love this. I'm going to stick these, make sure these go up on our LinkedIn, the LBX Collective LinkedIn. And actually, we'll also post these in our new Galaxy community that we're starting here shortly. So we can have people in that community also provide some feedback on this. This is great.
Well, that'll be really interesting to get the feedback from our audience.
Looking forward to it.
So let's jump into the tech trends. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because we're going to be going into a lot more of that coming with our IALPA, post-IALPA coverage after we've sobered up and bathed our feet and our heads, as it were. But I wanted to point towards a couple of trends that we're seeing from a very prominent developer, as well as some of the new developers that are coming into the sector. Very briefly, our friends at Raw Thrills have, got a very strong track record of rolling out high quality product and products that sits well with our audience, sits well with our operators. And so the latest products that they are going to be showing, not all of their new products, but some of the new products that they're going to be rolling out, is going to be a new shooter, which is really a recontextualization of their previous 4-player Raven shooting system. They've now condensed it and updated the gameplay for a 2-player variant of that machine. Again, targeting an audience that is popular with the Halo franchise, but also targeting operators that don't have the same kind of space to drop in a 4-player machine into their sites, which is interesting. Shooting games, especially with guns, have been limited at the moment because just the market hasn't had that many out there. And so seeing this now appear kind of rides the bandwagon that we're also seeing happening with the metal gun games, those targeting shooting games that we've also been seeing explode onto the market. And also the IP side, and Raw Thrills is very much in the forefront of licensing content or brands and placing them as amusement pieces. And so we saw at IALPA Europe their launch of their Angry Birds property. Again, a sit-down shooter, very similar to the Nerf shooting game that they created, but a simple product that can be easily converted from its redemption capabilities to just a pure video game approach. And that is interesting to consider of really what we're targeting with that kind of product for the audience. And then looking at the other forms of shooting systems we're seeing, our friends at Wallap, with their Monster i3, which has just been taken on and rebranded a Kaizu War, I think, by our friends at LAI. But it is the environmental cabinet approach. It is the sit in an enclosure, usually a motion seat holding the mounted gun games, shooting sequences with a little bit of mini game puzzle solving to break up the play style. And so we have the Wallap LAI product, and we also will be seeing a product from our friends at Bandai Namco Amusement. Again, be prepared to hear a lot more about environmental, or as I like to call them, immersive enclosure style products from the sector, not just the video amusement side, but I think we'll be also seeing a lot of immersive enclosure products from the VR, the AR, and the MR sides of our business. They're nice real estate offerings. They're mini theaters, as it were. It allows the operator to put in a big ticket item in a nice package. And from the manufacturer's point of view, it's a known property. It's a known product styling where they're not really breaking anything new. It's the content. They're creating an environment for content consumption. Right. I'm a bit of a mind. I look at these products as kind of the future of our sector, where you're going to be creating enclosures for people to get into and play and consume content. The same way that putting a virtual reality headset is kind of creating an environmental experience stuck on your head. I prefer this kind of approach of pushing the person into a nice immersive enclosure. I would argue that from an operator's point of view, they don't really like these machines as much because they're quite large and big machines. And, you know, if you come up with one every couple of years, then you have to rip one out and drop in the next one. I personally would like to see these go the same way that video amusement machines went in the late 80s, where the jammer board came, and rather than replacing the whole machine, you just pulled out the board and plugged in the new board. In this case, just pull out the content on whatever memory device you want or download, and then put in the new content. I would hope would be our future. But hoping for that and actually seeing that materialize are two different things. I've been wishing environmental cabinet updates rather than replacements for some time, and I haven't been satisfied yet. Talking about that enclosure kind of approach, and even the racing simulator and esports sector is looking at that kind of enclosure. And Vassaro is famous for creating racing simulators. Most people who've been following the F1 arcade facility rollout will be familiar with the Vassaro simulators that populate that site. There are other high quality racing simulators out there, but Vassaro at the moment has gained some prominence from their involvement in that sector. And they've actually come up with a pod or dome enclosure for their racing system. So rather than going for a virtual reality, rather than going just for a big screen, they've gone for a complete sensory experience through a pod enclosure. I wouldn't be surprised to see a system like this being looked at for certain kinds of location-based entertainment, especially because of the isolation it offers. If you have a noisy arcade environment and you want the person to fixate on their racing simulation experience, nothing's better than a pod. And we've been here before. The picture there on the left is also of another example of the kind of simulator enclosure or pod kind of environment. That particular one from Motion Simulation, and that one's over 6 or 7 years old. So, it may not be a brand new idea, but its application is finding favor again. And talking about environmental and talking about immersive and talking about simulation, and we have to be mindful that we've got a couple of anniversaries that have popped up. Battlezone can arguably be the popular first-person simulator style experience that started the ball rolling regarding the simulation game experiences that we have today. Battlezone, the tank game, was so popular that even the US Army thought of creating a military version. The Bradley Trainer was a version of the original arcade game that was dropped into PX stores, military bases. Get the troops training while dropping quarters. Interesting concept. And at the same time, or couple of years later on, our friends at Atari also came up with Red Baron, which was the first of the immersive flying games. It wasn't the first, but the first popular of these approaches. And they created a unique flying cabinet, a cockpit cabinet for you to experience the game in. And it was that kind of cockpit experience that kind of got the amusement industry to look at creating these inclusive, immersive, big screen, bells and whistles kind of larger cabinets compared to the more traditional upright cabinets that they had been fixated on at the time. So, you can kind of say 41 to 44 years ago, we really saw the pivot of our industry away from just big boxes with pixels towards the simulation experiences that we enjoy today. Though how many of us would look at the games that we're playing at the moment as simulations rather than just CGI graphic game experiences is another point. Anyway, I've been able to travel over some of the observations there, getting ready for the big rollout of information that will be coming in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Thank you for all that great history. It's amazing. All right. Okay, well, thank you for watching Sound Off episode, 52 today. My gosh, we are getting up there. Yeah. If you are headed to APA, we look forward to seeing you there. If not, we will be checking in with you afterwards to let you know about all the good stuff that we found. And until next time, take care and keep kicking ass.